This is the Umbrella Academy podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're discussing Umbrella Academy Season 2, Episode 4, The Majestic 12.
Luther, I never gave up on you. Any of you. I just assumed Five would come back eventually, but the last time he jumped...
Yeah, he was gone for years, I know.
I needed something to hold on to. And Ray gave me that.
Hey. No one gets to tell us how to deal with the end of the world. Right? Not even each other.
Welcome back, fellow Academy alumni. This is TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about the Umbrella Academy Season 2, Episode 4, The Majestic 12. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
I'm one of your other hosts, Chris.
Hello there, fellow Brollies. I am one of your other hosts, John.
Brolly Dollies.
Brolly Dollies, yes. Or Brollies for short.
I did find another Umbrella Academy podcast, which is really good, called Brolly Buddies, which I really liked. Yeah. So, good podcast there, guys. I'm really enjoying listening to that one. So, yeah, there you go, John. So there are some other Brolly buddies out there.
Yes, but they are also Brolly Dollies.
They're also Brolly Dollies, yes.
Yes, welcome Brolly Dollies and fellow Academy alumni. We are TV Podcast Industries, and if you want, why not pop over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries to get all our episodes first with some exclusive goodies. Ooh. Or you can head over to tvpodcastindustry.com to subscribe to all our podcasts on any good or evil podcast player, catcher, or anything you want. Yes, get it all, get it there, but get it first on Patreon.
There you go. There you go. Let's get into our discussion about episode 4 of this season. The episode's directed by Tom Verica. He's directed TV shows like Grey's Anatomy, but he's still probably best known as playing Viola Davis's husband, Sam, on How to Get Away with Murder. John, you were obsessed with that show.
Yeah, I really liked that first season, and I kind of dropped away from it, but yes, I do remember Tom Verica as well. And Viola Davis was fab.
Absolutely brilliant in that show. Yeah, definitely.
It also had the dude from Harry Potter as well, one of the kids from Hogwarts.
That's right, yeah.
Can't remember the name.
You were
now.
absolutely obsessed. Every time I came into a room when I wasn't watching a show, John would be watching like 3 episodes of that back to back. So you probably know him very well, but he's directing this episode. So kind of cool.
Interesting. On a complete aside, Dudley, the really short, fat, evil cousin from the very first Harry Potter, is the main villain in The Old Guard.
Yes,
which is Greg Rooker's one, which we haven't discussed. It's very good. Go watch it. Mm-hmm. That is my aside note. Anywho, and continue.
It did take me about an hour to place him as well.
He has changed.
I think the kids calling glowing up.
Yeah.
He grew up.
I think by the time they were filming the last Harry Potter, they had to put him into a fat suit because he'd lost so much weight. He'd just grown out of the teenage weight, basically. But that
anyway. Is my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. I'm in a fat suit. It's my birthday fat suit, but it's still a fat suit.
I like it, Chris. I like it. Back to this episode of Umbrella Academy. The teleplay for this episode was done by Bronwyn Garrity. Done lots of sci-fi, so lots of sci-fi credentials from her. She did Under the Dome, The Returned, and Outlander. So 3 big sci-fi shows that she worked on in the past. And now on to Umbrella Academy. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for the episode?
Sure. While Allison searches frantically for her husband, Ray Chestnut, Vanya contends with a crisis at the farm, and Five, Diego, and Lila crash a party at the Mexican Consulate.
All coming back into play. Yeah, I like the idea that this is connected directly to them finding that invite to the Mexican consulate, so they know where they need to go to catch up with Sir Reginald,
also known as good old Dad.
Yeah,
Pops.
Also Reggie, I noticed in this episode. He is called Reggie by some people.
He's a man of many names.
Yes.
Sir Reggie.
Yes.
Sir Reggie.
You are allowed to call him Reggie.
Oh my God, I'd love to be called Sir Reggie. Actually, I just want to be called Sir.
Sir Chris would be quite good, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Chris, do you want to take us off with your main moment from this episode?
Very quickly, it's we're given the origin of Lila.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what I expected.
Okay.
And I am already calling it. Five was involved, but he doesn't know.
All right.
So we get this flashback moment. We're jumped back into the early 90s. I think it's 1993 or something.
Mm-hmm, I think so, yeah.
And it's in the UK.
In London.
In London. London, innit?
London.
See, I can do accents sometimes.
That was quite good on your scalpers.
Yeah, thank you. We see the handler there for probably when she wasn't the handler, when she was an agent as well.
Yeah.
Basically, they do a hit. They kill a mother and father, and she finds a child. The reason I think 5 was involved, before I get into the rest of the origin, is she is joined by a male figure in black, in a lovely black suit, but we do not see his face, and it is obviously obscured.
Yes.
Obviously
definitely.
obscured.
And he does the killing, this operative, as well. He is the main trigger squeezer in this operation.
Definitely. Yeah, she definitely likes to pass on the work to other people. I was wondering whether it might have been Hazel, because we've seen him in the black suit before, obviously all the way through season 1, but Hazel's partner was Chacha, so unlikely that he was also partnered with the handler, but maybe he was. You never know. They may have worked together for a short time before she became the big boss. But yeah, I think you're right. There's a reason it's being obscured. Maybe it was just, we don't want to get into the details of who this person is. but
it could be something as simple as that. Yeah. I just take it as more in that the way that this is all kind of being set up, that in season 1, the handler found 5 when he was a boy, took him in, trained him. They probably were partners for years before she became the handler. So there's going to be a bit of a need there, like in terms of from a character development, maybe like that Lila doesn't recognize 5 for being 5 because he was
much older,
an old man, or at least a middle-aged man when they met.
Yeah, but she instantly knows she hates him. Basically, and that's what we seem to see.
And everyone hates their stepdad. Come on,
definitely.
it's a universal TV trope, and you know how much I love tropes.
Uh-huh.
But then we just get a nice kind of montage of Lila going to her first, what we assume is a prom, and it turns out to be her first ever killing, which is kind of cute, I suppose.
I guess so. I must say, I did absolutely love the obstacle course, or the assault course with the assault rifle. That would be the best way to describe it. It just made me laugh with the handler with her cigarette or a cigarillo out of her mouth while she's shooting this AK-47 at the assault course. Hilarious.
Yeah, I really enjoy this. I know I usually jump and kind of go, oh god, a flashback scene or origin, just because it's been done. A lot of them have been done in flashbacks so many times. But what I really think that this was done in a fun Umbrella Academy way.
Absolutely.
I think that's the best way. It was written in a, hey, we're not going to bog you down in a very dramatic origin story flashback. This is going to be a fun, over the top, kind of, here's everything you need to know. Done. Yeah. We're good. We good. Let's move on.
Very Umbrella Academy. Credit sequence as well. And also, I guess if you want to adopt the child of someone you've murdered, give them some ice cream, because she seems to forget all about the parents that were murdered basically in front of her, and lives with the handler for the rest of her life.
She really does, doesn't she?
Like, she certainly heard the gunshots, because she's only like hidden in the walls, like watching on. She's not like in a different room or in a different country or anything. So yeah, ice cream.
Yeah, like she's not a baby. She is kind of an infant. Yeah. So you're kind of wondering, does she remember anything, or are there special kind of like Men in Black type things that the commission have to be able to stop her from remembering?
Yeah.
Stockholm syndrome, where you fall in love with your kidnapper. That could be quite similar.
Maybe.
Well, yeah.
Can I tell you my interesting fact about Stockholm syndrome, since you mentioned it?
Oh, go on then.
Go on.
Actually, there's no proof behind Stockholm syndrome. It was made to discredit a woman that they want to discredit on a particular case. They made it sound like she was in love with her kidnapper to discredit her. So the actual theory of Stockholm syndrome doesn't exist. It was made up by somebody trying to discredit a woman that was involved in a situation. There you go.
There you go.
Wow.
So welcome to the podcast within a podcast of Umbrella Academy, where we deep dive psychological terminology.
I don't think we do.
Next up, Dublin syndrome, where technically you're stuck in a house and you kind of like it, but you don't like it. And Dublin's a bit of a shithole, but it's not really a shithole. It's better than some other countries.
Yeah.
We're going to disprove that next.
Along with cabin fever and the red mist.
Yeah. There
Yes.
you go. There you go.
But yes, gentlemen, that is kind of my major point. I really just enjoyed the way they handled this origin sequence.
Definitely.
It was in, it was out. But at the same time, it again had just that fun humor that 4 episodes in, I'm really so happy we're back kind of getting from Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, and it also just immediately goes into the hotel room where they're kind of having pancakes and champagne, which sounds absolutely gorgeous. You kind of, it's a nice little bit of intrigue where the handler says to Lila, "You must protect number 5 at all costs," which is kind of not what I was thinking that she was going to say. So, certainly given she almost farted going into the oven, then she was put there because of number 5, effectively, through his machinations. Okay, it was Hazel that gave the shot, but ultimately she kind of was undone, and certainly with the last episode where she has AJ, the fish, and Herb, then she's kind of come down a few pegs, really. So I kind of thought that was interesting. See where that goes now.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of a comment on something you mentioned last time, Chris, about whether she has fallen for Diego. You see a little suggestion from the handler that she can go and kill Diego if she wants to. If she wants to relieve the tension of not being able to kill anybody. And she kind of refutes that. And there's definitely a moment, which I'm sure we'll talk about, where she has the opportunity to save Diego, and she does seem a bit torn about whether she'll save him or not.
Yeah.
So
we all love Diego. I have to say, I'm really enjoying Diego's character so far this season, more than season 1, to be honest. But I just think it's great. It's tragic. It's funny. It's empowering. I'm loving what David Castañeda is bringing in this season. It's so good, and the long hair is cool as well.
I think everybody got an upgrade this season. I think that can only come from having a first season where you set the baseline of who the people are and then give them all an upgrade. Almost every character gets great lines and gets good moments, even so far, these 4 episodes. Is that kind of your first point, Chris?
That's really it.
Yeah.
That's really it for my major point for this. John, I believe you're up next in your big moment for this episode.
Yes, carrying on from the fish theme of the last episode, there's going to be a seafood tower. Yes, that is number 5, Diego and Lila infiltrating the Mexican Consulate to try and get to old Daddykins. And dare I say it, I suppose the Majestic 12 that are there in the room having a meeting, this kind of covert, secret shadow organization. No idea what they're doing, but certainly it doesn't look great. It's certainly not open and transparent as we would like. So, but I love this just whole infiltration by these 3. We get this moment where you have number 5 questioning Lila. Who is this we? You go first. I'm certainly not trusting you at this moment.
Oh yeah.
And then, as you mentioned, that moment where there's the fight along the corridor with the Swedes who have also infiltrated, and I just loved that. I loved the moment where it's all bouncing backwards and forwards. Number 5 loses his ability to kind of run out of juice to be able to do those short hops in space and time to get the large Swedes. You have Lila, torn, protect number 5 at all costs, or save the flame that's twinkling away in her heart. It's all just really nice. Diego kind of getting himself handed on a plate by the 2 Swedes, but ultimately ending up with, there's a real nice tracking shot where Diego, I can't remember the music, but you see Diego fighting the lead Swede, Yeah, that rhymes. The lead Swede, and you just see it in the windows as he gets sort of taken down.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really, really good.
Absolutely. The music was Kiss. I was
That
made
was
for
it.
loving you, baby.
Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was a really nice moment. But we also, as well, in the Mexican Consulate, we get to see Grace. And
Yes, we do.
I presume a real life non-machine Grace. But I just loved Diego's awkwardness, where he comes up to her and goes like, "Hi, Mum," and she goes, "That's not a way to crack onto someone." And I just think it's really, because from season 1, there's that little special thing between Diego and Grace, because she helped him combat his stutter, and I just thought this was really, really nice. And you see him seeing her across the room whilst they're having that, whilst him and Lila are having that dance, and it's just a really nice interaction that gives the sense of awkwardness of Diego seeing his mum, probably thinking she's quite a fox.
Well, she looks exactly the same as she did when he left
I know,
the last
but
time he saw her. So I don't think he's thinking that.
No.
She's probably thinking that about Diego.
Maybe, but the awkwardness that he brings to the whole situation.
You just brought a lot more awkwardness to that situation.
Probably did, actually, yeah. Looking at his, it's just the sense of seeing his mum again.
Right. I think this would be called
rather than the foxy mum, I suppose.
I think this would be called the Oedipus complex, John, where you want to sleep with your mother and kill your father. That's exactly what he's doing if it's going down your path. But I don't think so.
And there's an element of truth there. He certainly wants to kill his father.
Certainly does. Yes, he does.
And so maybe not necessarily make love to his mother, but maybe yes, now that she's biological.
Yeah,
assuming that she is, who knows?
God, if people had a problem with Allison and Luther getting together, they'd definitely have a problem with the real version of his mom.
Well, that is true. That is true. And anything on the Oedipus complex, is that fake or not fake? It's just our deep dive sequence.
Yes, a deep dive series of podcasts within a podcast.
It comes from a story that's written specifically about that situation, so there is something true in it. Yeah,
this historical precedent. We may not say it's real, but this historical precedent.
The story was written to explain that particular situation. Yes,
yeah, exactly.
But it is very interesting seeing Grace here. She does have a southern accent, so I just like the little touch that we have. Sir Reggie, if he did in fact create Robot Mom based on this woman, he took out her Southern American accent and gave her an upper class British accent, or a very much more upper class accent, because this sounds like the kind of thing Reggie would do. It's like, I love how she looked, but maybe we need to give her a more different accent to fit in with taking care of the children. But you're right, she did provide all the emotional support for Diego and for the family that their father wasn't able to do. So really important character to all of them, their mother, and I'm sure for Diego in this scene, seeing his mother across her room looking exactly the same as she did to him throughout his entire life, it must be a really freaky moment for him.
It is a great interaction though, for sure. Yeah. And I think as well as Diego's kind of going to the fact that she says Sir Reggie is her date.
Yeah.
I just think this is really a nice interaction between the two.
Definitely.
Certainly because it's something special connected as well back to the season 1 as well.
Exactly. Great to have you.
I do very quickly just want to call out the Majestic 12 link. As a bit of an Area 51 conspiracy nut back in the day as a kid, I love this that they've pulled in that there's the secret society of Majestic 12 pulling the strings in the US. It's a nice kind of cherry on top. They could have used Illuminati. They could have used, and they're going back and they're using the correct conspiracy to flesh out that timeline.
Yeah.
It's just a nice, and then they're weaving in that Reggie's in there and he's part of it. And there's a man in black, in there, literally a man in black dressed like a man in black as well.
Yeah, I love this as well, Chris. I think as well, it was seeing the G-men as well, the guy with the hat, the sunglasses, the trench coat. It was just so reminiscent of that, that government operative, that agent, trying to blend in and not really doing that great a job about it. Really like that kind of reference to the G-men.
Yeah, and didn't we hear the conversation? Part of the conversation they were having was about the government are finding their landing sites as well. And, back to season 1, we learned that Reggie is actually an alien who came to the planet. So are all of the rest of the Majestic 12, are they all aliens behind everything that's going on? Is that what they formed together? Or is there other things at play here? We'll probably learn more. But that was the conversation that 5 was listening into just before getting attacked by the Swede. So, so an interesting.
Well, and the interesting thing is, as the Majestic 12, recognize they've been compromised because of the big brawl happening in the corridor. As Reggie and Grace make their way and leave, we do have number 5 sort of catching up with him and just shouting out to him in Greek and speaking Greek. Now, I've no, dare I say it, classical education around Greek or Latin or Roman, would you? No, probably not. That's Latin. There you go. No classical education.
You didn't have to learn anything through like Latin or anything when you were in Oxford, no?
No, I didn't learn Latin at all anyway through, other than maybe for some scientific names. That's about as far as I go, really.
I think my mom knows Latin from scripture and stuff when she was a kid. I think you had to learn all your stuff through Latin when you went to maths.
Yeah. No, didn't learn Latin.
All gone by art.
Or Greek in all honesty.
Not classical Greek then, no?
No, no Byzantine, no Russian, the Cyrillic alphabet. No, nothing like that.
We don't know what that is. We'll probably find out what that is, what he was trying to shout at his father. We'll probably find that out later. But an interesting one that he would choose something in ancient Greek to shout at his father.
Well, it was all Greek to me.
It was definitely. Really good scenes though in this consulate, in the Mexican consulate with everything going on. And definitely like the idea that 5 has his eye on Lila from the first moment that she's there. It's like, you seem like you know a lot. And Diego's also noticing it as well. There is that moment when 5 goes off to explore the house and Lila's watching after him. And that's when Diego kind of drags her away to go dancing on the dance floor. Because he's realized that she has something there. So
it's really good. It's a good end for this scene, and it's a good end to this episode as well.
Also, the dance sequence is pretty cool. I like that Lila takes control and Diego's like, what am I supposed to do here? I only learned traditional ballroom dancing where I'm in control because I'm the man, kind of thing. And Lila's like, that's not what's going to happen here. Really good. Still like her, even though we know she's a bad guy. I still like her in the show. So.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what they'll do with the character now over the next while.
Definitely.
So, John, I think that's the end of your point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Derek, what was your big point for this episode?
I just really liked the continuation of the storyline that we had with Klaus trying to save Dave. It just feels like such a big change to the character almost, that he found his purpose towards the end of season 1, going back to Vietnam and finding the man of his dreams in Vietnam and Dave, and now he's trying everything he possibly can to save Dave. But it also comes through Klaus's thoughts and Klaus's way of doing things as well. I love how brazen he is, just walking straight up to Dave when his Uncle Brian walks off to the bathroom, and he says to him, all of this information, does this other data dump as to why Dave can't go and join the army. But it just, how it escalates, I think is really interesting. You see Uncle Brian returning and instantly looking at Klaus in his hippie gear and instantly calling him queer, instantly telling him to get the hell out of his seat, and then telling Dave to punch this guy in the face, basically. It just escalates and escalates. And you hear, as the argument's going on, you actually hear Klaus plead with Dave, saying to him, I know you won't understand this right now, but in the future we will be in love. I know you won't understand what's going on. I know right now this won't make sense to you, but we will be in love in the future. And that's when he gets punched by Dave to shut him up. And I just think it's so well put together, the scene. I think the acting of Robert Sheehan, once again, is funny at times within a very serious scene, but he also really looks very hurt by what's going on, very hurt by the idea that he's being pushed out of the room. And he's also looking at things from the perspective of someone in 2019, back in 1960, with this horrible person like Brian, who's basically telling him he doesn't deserve to be anywhere near his family just because he's gay, or just because he may not be straight, I suppose would be, I think Klaus is pretty open, in terms of sexuality, but he's there to save Dave's life, and neither of them will listen to him really. But you can see he's slightly getting through today. There's definitely some recognition there in what Klaus is saying to him. That there is some kind of connection between the two of them there.
Definitely.
But I think the scene is really well put together.
Yeah, great. It's just a shame what happens next.
Absolutely, yeah, because we do have, and I don't know why we completely missed it, probably because we watched all 10 episodes of the first season really quickly and then did our recap podcast. But one of the things we kind of didn't comment on was Klaus has been dry since he gave up drinking towards the end of season 1 with the help of Ben. He's been completely dry, no drink, no drugs, which was something that was central to his comedy side of his character throughout the first season. Now it seems like he's moved into being this cult leader and using the techniques that he's learned as a guru almost to kind of get rid of all the negative experiences that he was having, instead of using drink and drugs. But now, because of being punched by Dave at the request of his uncle, he's now gone back on a bender. He's going off to get drunk again. He's going off to buy loads and loads of alcohol to go back to the old place that he was in before that. So
yeah, it's really good. Not that I would be drinking neat gin. That seems pretty grim. This was really, I thought it was really nicely done, to be honest. And I think in Klaus, Robert Sheehan really has that balance of a troubled individual with a nice comedic edge, but also with that sensitive side that can show anguish, pain, disappointment, if you will, hurt, really nicely. It's a great characterization. And I think it really works. And just moving into that other gear where he goes to the off license and takes a ton of booze off the shelves again is just, it's just so nicely done. And I think just having the pair up with Ben as well, being that kind of, angel giving him guidance on the shoulder, even though he tends not to listen to him, but nonetheless, I think it's a really great dynamic. And in a sense, that is saying Klaus is his own devil. He's his own worst enemy in that sense.
Absolutely. And I love how it plays out that he gets back to his house expected to go on his 5-day bender with all of his booze, and it turns out his cult has arrived. As he gets back, it's like, oh, what am I going to do with this? And then gets chased down the road, dropping all of his bottles except for the one he has in his hand. So he never got to go on that 3-day bender, but he has definitely gone a little way back down that path of drinking again.
Yeah. Shame. But hopefully towards the end of the season, he'll have another redemptive arc. He'll sober up again.
Yeah. But as I say, at least he's not drank the 30 or 40 bottles that he bought on his own. So they're all smashed on the ground. So he's, at least he just has that one bottle, and off he goes. That's kind of the 3 big points from the episode. Do you want to quickly go through what's happened with the other members of the Umbrella Academy, as we usually do?
Yeah.
Sure. I'll jump in very quickly on Vanya. So we get Vanya essentially going back, and her and Sissy having a bit of a heart-to-heart. And poor old Harland discovers, as Vanya says she's going to leave, Harland overhears it and does a legger. And oh my god, that boy is 10 times faster than I originally thought possible. He's almost a bit of Flash on him, because he's just like, by the time they get outside the door and onto the thing, he's already halfway down the road and turning a corner. I was like, hold on, did they stop to put their shoes on or a jacket? I was like, what? Just anywho, he is halfway down the road. We hear a splash. And it turns out he is drowning in a small waterbed kind of lake that you see in a lot of the places where in the US, in the country where they'll always be, we need something. Well, let's have them jump into a quarry. No quarry. Let's jump into a lake. Cool. It's always convenient. Anyway, poor kid drowns. Vanya controls her power. Calls upon it, and much like Moses, parts the water, but less purring, more pushing back and up.
That was a cool
She
effect.
basically wonder bras the water. It's back and up, and manages to get Harland out of the water. Starts administering CPR, and this is the key part.
Yes.
A firefly that we called out in season 1 in our recap, the one that Sir Reggie releases into the ether before he gets on his rocket ship, essentially comes out of Vanya and into Harland.
Yeah.
So I did posit the question, were these fireflies potentially one of the reasons for the powers? Could this kind of lend some credence to potentially that these fireflies, these sparkles, these globes of energy, are connected somehow to the special, being special.
Were they the creation of all of the children that were born on the same day at the same time? That was the big question that we had at the end of season 1, and one of the things that I think has been left really weirdly unexplored in both the comics and in the TV show, as far as I've read. I'm still not finished volume 3 of Umbrella Academy, but it would feel like when you start a narrative with, on this day at this time, 43 children were born. 43 children were born. These 7 of them formed the Umbrella Academy. You would feel like the narrative of all of the rest of it would be, where are the other 36? What happened to them? Where are the other 36 children? And it never even mentioned at all. So,
do you remember in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a comic book run called Rising Stars?
Yes.
One of the best ones in the world, which is quite similar, which is on this day, there was a flash of light, and all the kids who were in utero at that point were born with powers.
Yeah, exactly.
If you were a minute before or a minute after and not in utero, you never had powers.
Yeah.
It described that. It went into that and the repercussions. This seems like we're going to do something similar, but we're never going to touch it.
Exactly.
But now they're slightly touching it, and now it's just like, because Harland lives.
Yes.
Vanya saves him. This speck gives him this float, this globule, this firefly gives him back life, if you will. Will he now develop powers?
Yeah.
Is he now special? Or was it just life force, energy, whatever you want to call it?
Like,
Chi.
Is Vanya even more powerful than we thought? We've seen the destructive power of Vanya throughout what happened towards the end of season 1. We've seen a bit of so far already in season 2, but is this the opposite side of her power? Is she not only
she can create,
that she can bring someone back to life? Because he's dead. Like there's no way that she's able to bring him back from this drowning until this firefly enters his body, and you can see it healing all around his throat and all around his head. So is that another power of Vanya's that we just haven't discovered? Yeah. Will she be able to do this and bring somebody else back to life of our main Umbrella Academy as well in the future?
Absolutely. I mean, well, it's certainly a distinct power to the one of using sound to be able to do all these waves. That she can cough up a firefly or this energy force in some way. Or if it is hers, does that mean that she has now reduced her power or lost her power? So that's the interesting thing here, because it's really very different to what we've seen before. It's another string to the bow of Vanya, or it is or it's maybe a loss of her power, possibly. I don't know. I think the other interesting thing is that she is able to, as you say, she does her power with taking the water out of the lake, but she also remembers that she's done that. She sees that she's doing it. She's kind of in mild surprise and shock. So compared to the crop circle in the maize field, where she kind of wakes up, and you certainly get the impression when number 5 reaches her, it's like, I don't know what happened. Yeah. So that's the other important sort of step on here, is she remembers. She knows herself now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's all of it. Do we want to move on very quickly to number 1?
Absolutely, yeah.
Definitely.
Just going from the opening scene where he's talking to Vanya, interestingly, he says she's the one that caused the apocalypse. I have a little bit to do with it, but still is putting the blame on this woman who has no memory of it at all.
Lovely.
Even 5, who is pretty cold, didn't tell her that she was involved in the apocalypse in any way. But Luther's telling her immediately, it was your fault, you did it. I had some kind of impact on it.
I love that he just spills the beans. And I do like Vanya's reaction to number 5, where she goes, well, are there any more secrets? And number 5 just replies with a boatload of family secrets that I failed to mention. It's really, really good. But Luther ultimately as well is having a very, very bad day. He's lost his job. He's kicked out of his bedsit. He's met up with Allison briefly. He's seen her, and it kind of just reinforces him going over to her house and meeting her husband Ray. So like he's just having a really, really bad day. But I do like the fact that with that bad day, it's kind of, he kicks back with Elliot back at Morty's and inhales the old gas there of nitrous. And there's that real kind of creepy moment where his voice becomes really dark and evil and kind of devil-like as he turns to Elliot and say, don't worry about your ex-wife. He goes, she'll be dead in 7 days. We all will. And it's just like, and then they burst out laughing because they're high on nitrous. So I really, really thought that scene was great. Just both of them wallowing in how crap everything is. And yeah, laughing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I did like the meeting between Luther and Allison. You know, I suppose Allison's side of the story in this episode is her trying to find Ray, who ran away from her in the last episode. So she's turned down by Ray. Effectively, he thinks that she's some type of FBI agent infiltrating their group, which is so weird since she was so much in a leadership role of that group. But he can't explain why the police officer would have walked away from her. Basically, that's kind of where his understanding comes from, why he thinks that she's she could be working for the enemy effectively. And then she bumps into Luther on the way back. And again, I think the conversation actually goes really well. I think they do reconnect very well. I think I chose the line that he says to her about nobody gets to tell us how we deal with an apocalypse or the end of the world. I think that's a lovely line from Luther, his kind of good moment from the episode. But he kind of follows it up with, it's happening again. It's about to happen again. We are going to have another doomsday. 5 told me. It's exactly the same situation we were in before we left. So nothing's really changed. So, yeah, you're right. Luther probably does have a pretty bad day here.
Yeah, no, definitely. But gentlemen, I believe that is the end of this episode. We have done our notes. So first up, I will turn to you, Derek. What did you think about this episode?
Really enjoyed this episode overall. I think it moves everything along really well. Gives everybody some good moments throughout it, and I think there's some really good deep stuff going on, especially as I mentioned with Klaus trying to save Dave, which is a bigger story than we saw in season 1 for the character. A lot of season 1 was about trying to get them back together. This actually does have some individual storylines for each of the characters. Again, I think they're doing a great job so far this season, building on what they created in season 1. I think overall, so far anyway, better season as we're going through it. What do you think, Chris?
I'm right there with you. They're moving this at a pace where I have yet to feel bored. I have my litmus test is, do I pick my phone up during an episode? Like back in the old days when you'd watch this on cable, you'd have an ad break and that would be fine. Yeah. I now understand it now. If something's not gripping me, I will pick up my phone at some point. It's just programmed into me. I have yet to pick up my phone for any of these episodes.
Good man.
So I'm glued in. I'm stuck there. I'm happy with how they're progressing. And I just want to see more. And I'm in love with the writing and their choice of how to portray little things. Like they could have gone for the old fashioned flashback style dialogue where it's like, I'm going to explain it all and we're going to flashback and it's going to be dark and serious, but it's all done through we did get a serious origin for Leah, but it was done through a comedic lens. Yeah. And it was done in as I said, the very Umbrella Academy way. Mm-hmm. So absolutely loved it.
Excellent.
John, what about yourself? What do you think of episode 4 of the Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, I'm there with you guys for sure. I give this 4.5 shrimp crowns out of 5. Yeah, I just think it's really moving along really, really nicely, and I kind of like that they just don't mind mixing things up here. You know, what with I suppose the turmoil now for Allison. You've got the big thing of the episode with the Mexican Consulate, yet they throw in a little bit of backstory for Lila that ties into the end of the last episode. You have, changing things up. So, Luther, number 1, he is really continuing his fall from grace here. And I like that kind of sort of whole thing with Luther in this season. I like to see him wallowing a bit. He kind of it feels like he got it easy in season 1 because he was Daddy's favorite in a sense. Okay, we knew that to be not the truth, exactly, but it seems like that even through space and time, that's still continuing that kind of betrayal in his mind.
It feels like he's getting kicked when he's down constantly.
Exactly.
Even when he tries to strike out on his own, ignore everybody and go off and just do what he needs to do for himself, he's still getting kicked when he's down.
Exactly. And I'm kind of wondering whether Diego and him are going to connect in, because it was always Diego the one being kicked in season 1, and he still is being kicked in season 2, but he's had 2-3 years of being his own superhero without the others, so his confidence is kind of high despite the same perception of him by his brothers and sisters. So I really like that, and then also to see Grace there was really nice. I wasn't expecting that at all. It's just really, really good, and loads of intrigue as well about, like with Vanya, has she lost her powers? What was that thing moving in to kind of basically resuscitate and bring life back to Harlan? All these different little things. The Majestic 12. What is that true purpose? Yeah. So what is the Greek spoken by number 5? So there's loads of things here that I think are really, really good. Absolutely.
Wasn't there one thing that we didn't mention about the Majestic 12? Didn't they mention something about they were in hiding in the darkness until Kennedy shone a light? So again, another tie-in with the assassination of JFK, which is supposed to be happening in about 2 or 3 days' time, right? So is the Majestic 12, is that their reasoning for going after Kennedy? Are they supposed to be killing him because of the exposure of the Majestic 12? But that was just a little drop line that was in there in the episode. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. Let's close out the episode as we usually do. We're off to our pub quiz.
Yes, it's Jack Ruby's Carousel Bar, and it's the pub quiz. Yes.
Might need to find a new bar after Luther lost his job. We may not be going back to the Carousel Club again.
Well, absolutely. It could just be go down to your local off license and grab a brown bag and just swig. Well, a big brown bag for multiple litres of hard spirits, like Klaus. Nip down to under a railway arch or maybe a merry-go-round at your local park and get drunk as a skunk. I'm not saying I did that as a kid, but maybe I did.
You do want people to answer the questions in our pub quiz, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So here is the question, fellow brolly dollies. Yes, for episode 4, the question is, what do Luther and Elliot share together back at Morty's?
Ooh.
Yes.
Interesting. One of these wonderful ones during the season where you've given out the answer a few times in the
episode.
Yes.
Some easy, some hard, some dubious, So that is the question for episode 4. What do Luther and Elliot share together back at Morty's?
Excellent.
Answers to feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com, or lump them all together and, of course, send them in to avail of, the winner will not avail, but will win some great Umbrella Academy prizes.
Excellent. And feedback at TV Podcast Industries is the place to send all your thoughts about the Umbrella Academy. We're going to be separating out a feedback episode later on in the season. We are still recording these episodes before Umbrella Academies come out, but we'll be putting in your feedback and talking about your feedback in separate episodes as they start to come into us. Hopefully you've been enjoying the series so far as much as we have. We'll talk to you again next time on TV Podcast Industries.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you very soon for episode 5.
Yes, thank you so much, fellow Brolly Dollies, for joining us. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep drinking.
John looked really nervous about telling you to keep drinking. You can still say keep dry if you want to, John.
No, always keep.
I was going to say keep shrimping, but that sounds like a sexual kind of thing that you do in some kind of swimming pool.
Oh God! Okay, that's definitely
oh my
not what I was
God!
expecting.
Okay, I did not know where you're going there, and now I'm just curious. What?
I don't know.
God,
no, like dogging, but it's like dogging, but in a pool, so they call it shrimping. I don't know, something like that. I don't know.
I was just thinking about the shrimp tail. Is there something around the tail?
I just don't want to get into this. No. Right, we will be back with episode 5 Valhalla next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.